All right. Well, welcome everyone to our Site Leaders Connect Insight interview series. Today, I'm so excited to have one of our great educational leaders, David Platt, on the show today, and he will be sharing some insight with us with a great topic. I'll let him talk about that in a moment. But first, David, could you please introduce yourself and tell us, why did you choose to be an educator?
Okay, so gosh, why did I choose to be an educator? Shoot. So I'm David Platt. I'm a 17-year teacher here, and I've been at the same district down in Southern California, Covina Valley Unified School District. I wanted to be an educator because I wanted to give back, and I wanted to invest. I love kids. So I wanted to invest back in kids, and you got to have a passion for kids. You got to care about kids to want to be a teacher, to be like a high school teacher, and you got to be like a middle school teacher. You got to love middle school kids. So,
Absolutely, yeah.
Exactly, and I wanted to give back, and I had some very influential teachers in my life. My fifth grade teacher was an amazing man who he cared about his kids very well, and he loved us well. And he really built into us. And I had a German teacher at my high school that I took all 4 years, and he was another catalyst for influencing me to be a teacher. And when I got into teaching, I wanted to be a German teacher of all things, which is kind of, I guess, kind of unique, at least more unique on this coast. On the East Coast, I know they have a lot more German teachers, and it's kind of a dwindling thing in a lot of districts around here to have German. But I had a passion for it, and I wanted to do that. And I was a German teacher in Covina Valley for 16 years. I taught at the middle school, which was a challenge, but I loved it. I love those kids, and I also taught at the high school. So I would jump back and forth sometimes for a couple years between campuses. And the German program recently ended because just of declining enrollment. I knew it was going to happen. It was just a process. And then this year they gave me EL and computer science, and I've been doing computer science off and on since I started, and then teaching different forms of it, whether it was web design or programming with JavaScript. And now I do EL and computer science, and that includes AP computer science principles, and hopefully in the next couple years, computer science A.
Excellent. So I bet you're super excited about the standards coming out, right?
I am.
California.
I'm excited about the standards, and I'm hoping some things can get rewritten so that non-math teachers can teach CSA, so we don't have to get a math credential or take the industrial and technology CSET, and we can do some other things to get into that, because there's a lot of teachers who know computer science well, but we're not math people, and we can teach it, and we understand the logic, we can do all of that. We just need to have that opportunity that is maybe a little bit less difficult to get into. I know if I took the CSET for math, that would be very, very difficult for me. I could not. I would have to work really, really, really hard to pass it. I would probably just take the alternative and go back to college and just take a ton of classes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the good thing, and I know we're getting a little off topic here, but I think it's really important because computer science really gets kids thinking logically and creative and all these things. And it's the jobs in computer science, particularly in California, but really across the nation. There's such an opportunity there. So the good thing is it's on the radar of the state now. The standards are supposed to be coming out in September, and then we've got the implementation committee meeting right now, and I know that they have been discussing credentialing. So hopefully things will change for the better. But it's a good time to be in education. Thank you for your stories of why you chose to be an educator, David. I like how you talked about other educators inspiring you, and so I think it's good for us to remember that we can do that for students as well. So let's go ahead and move on to the topic at hand here. I know you wanted to talk about Rethinking Lesson Design. I'm very excited to hear about that. So can you share some insight that you've gained regarding that topic that you think may be beneficial to us?
Okay, so rethinking lesson design. So let me. I'm going to throw this picture out to you real quick, just so that you can see the perspective here. This is. Oh, you see that?
Yes.
That is my drawer of lesson plans. Okay. I open it once a year to remind me what I gave up, which was 180 plus lesson plans. Is actually more than that because I had German 1, 2, 3, and AP in there. And tons of worksheets, bookwork, and the like. Why do I keep that? Well, it's a drawer I don't use. So I I keep it to remind me what I have moved beyond, what I have given up, and it's been for the better. And it puts perspective for me that I am seeking self-improvement all the time.
I like that you have that reminder to yourself of where you've come from. I think it's important that we remember all of us have certainly learned a lot. And if we looked back at the way we used to teach or the way we used to lead others to teach, I think sometimes we cringe, but it's good to remember that because not everybody is in the same spot. And we thought that lesson design was effective and we didn't know any better. So I think it's a good thing to remember that. So what do you do now that's different than that file cabinet of worksheets and what, all those things that are in there?
Well, I mean, we can really teach beyond the textbook with all of the resources that we have. And I'm going to go to and plug John Carippo's Edu Protocols, John Carippo and Marlena Heburn's Edu Protocols. And that was something that really put it really into perspective for me because I had been teaching using things like that in my classroom without actually calling them protocols. And I was stepping away from the lesson plan as it was written. And I had a core set of ideas and protocols that I was using in my class. And what I would do is I would mix those up in the classroom for different types of elements of lesson design. Now, whether you're using the Madeline Hunter 7 or you're using the 5 E's or something like that, you have the different elements that you can bring in or protocols you can bring into parts of the lesson and have students do that. So what you're doing with that might be a check for understanding could also be input or exploring for students to do. And in being able to mix that up, I can walk into my classroom and have a core set of protocols, a core set of procedures that I'm doing in my class, and have it transfer across the curriculum. So it's not curriculum specific, it's not grade specific, and I can create lessons quickly and on the fly, and then be able to also have a lot of differentiation and to address student needs right then and there. So, I mean, there's been plenty of times when I go in and I have a lesson laid out of what I'm going to do, and then everything falls apart because the students aren't getting it, and then I just transfer my protocols to a different part of the lesson, and I'm able to move on, and the students are able to move on. We're able to get they get the input, and they're able to understand, and then they'll be able to explain or do their guided practice, independent practice, and do it well.
Sure, absolutely. For those that I would agree that Edu Protocols are a great. I myself, when I started thumbing through John Carippo, Marlena's Heburn's book, also had the same experience where I thought, oh, I used to do some things that were kind of similar to this as a teacher. But for those that are not familiar with what that means, can you expand a little bit on you talked a lot about there's freedom in using these protocols, different places that you can kind of put it within the lesson itself. But can you just maybe expand a bit on what that actually looks like? Maybe give an example.
Yeah, I have a couple different examples, and one that actually I created recently that is working well for my EL students, and I'll share this one out to you real quick, just so that you can see what it is. There you go. That is called word reps. Okay. And I got this idea because Lisa Nowakowski, he has math reps, right? And This is a protocol that she uses in her class for her students to break down all the different elements of math based on a certain core principle. So I thought the same thing. I'm like, you know what? We're doing this all the time with vocabulary, and what good does it really do for students to just always have to write it down, spell it 3 times each, write down the vocabulary and whatnot. So I wanted the students to really interact with the words as much as possible. So I created this thing called word reps, and the students will write down like a core word. So what we did today was the word agreement. And then they need to come up with the verb form, the adverb form, the adjective form, find synonyms and antonyms for that word. And then they're able to label what part of speech that is. And then we go back and then they write sentences in their own words that use each of those different forms. And then we're able to go back and then repeat the next day. So we did agreement. Now let's do this word. And they start understanding connections between different words instead of, oh, we just have the word agreement. Now we know all the different parts of agreement. Oh, here's words that are similar to agreement. And then we're able to review those the next day through something like a Kahoot or Quizzes or Quizlet Live or Go Formative or anything like that. So that's just an example of a protocol. Some other ones that we have are things like Iron Chef lesson design, or even things like Pecha Kucha. So Iron Chef, that is a way of, you give students the basic ideas that they need to research, and you give them usually it's a slide of 3 or 4 slides, and you have students in groups of 3. Each student gets a slide, and then they have core things that they have to answer on each of those slides, and each student is responsible for their slide, and they do it in typically of a Freyer model. So Freyer model, you have the topic, then you have the definition, then you have I'm sorry, the lights are turning off in my back of my room here. There we go, fix that. Okay,
that's right, that's real life right there.
Yep. So each kid gets a slide, and there you have the topic, you have the definition, you have the examples, you have media, and then you have usually the opposite, or the non-example, or you have what we call the secret ingredient. And the kids connect with the learning. And if you have 24 kids in your class, you have 8 groups of 3. Those 8 groups all present the same material. The kids are all getting the same concepts. They're all getting the same ideas. And it's based on reps. And they're all repeating the same concept. So you go through and you do an Iron Chef on, let's just say, the early presidents, and you have the first 3 presidents that are done, one for each slide of the first 3 presidents. By the end of the class period, you do a quick check for understanding. Did the students get it? What material are they not understanding? Okay, we can review and repeat that again the next day. But the students are the ones doing the lecture, and they're doing the lecture quickly. And it's not even that they're standing up there doing those awkward, long, or they're reading like the worst PowerPoint ever. No, it's quick, short, to the point. Every student gets 30 seconds for their slide. That's it.
I love that. Yeah, especially. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
I was going to say some things I really like about that model is with the reps, of course, when the students do a certain, they've got that format, they get used to that format, and you're changing out, it's flexible, so you could change out the concepts that they're researching, or you can change out that vocabulary term so that but they're not having to spend a big portion of the time trying to figure out what are they even asking in this question. It gets straight to the content. So I like that. And I also like what you said about pacing. I find a lot of newer teachers give kids too much time to stand in front of the class and present their information or whatever, instead of giving them those 30 seconds per slide or whatever it happens to be. So that's a great way to do that. Was this how was the shift in the teaching? Starting to teach this way, was it difficult to give the kids more control, so to speak, than you were used to?
Actually, no, it wasn't. You'd think it might be. And my early, like with most of us who when we were in the classroom, we had this this idea that we would teach, and we had these great, beautiful lectures where we'd write all this information on the board, and the kids were completely disconnected. Well, of course they're disconnected. They're not paying attention. They're thinking about lunch, or they're thinking about brunch, or they're thinking about something else besides the content. So it was when I started stepping away, and I started doing this in German class, and I gave the vocabulary to the students, and I gave the grammar concepts to the students, and they're the ones who did the research. And a lot of the questions that you put in a Iron Chef typically are DO1K, DO1, 2, and they're go back and present that material. That's the material that I was presenting. Here's the grammar, here's how you use it. No, I was getting them actually tied in with working with it, and they were understanding it better because they were hearing it from one another, and then they wanted to pay attention better, and then they're going to pay attention better because everybody is presenting it only 30 seconds each, and then group of 3, minute 30 seconds, done, boom. Okay, any questions? All right, let's move on to next group. And so the shift really wasn't as hard as I thought. Actually, it was really easy for me, because then I didn't have to like overwork myself and work my throat, and then even grading became a lot easier because, okay, did they all present? Did they all have their slides done completely? Did they do it all correctly? What feedback do I need to give them so that they can present better the next time?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's good to hear, because if we have any educational leaders out there watching that are saying, well, that sounds interesting, but I'm not quite sure, is that going to be a difficult switch for my teachers? That's good to hear that for you it went very smoothly. If there are leaders out there that are wanting more information and would like to get their teachers started in this sort of lesson design, what are some resources that you would steer them towards, and some additional information? What's some places they can go to find that?
Oh gosh. Okay. So yeah, first thing I'm going to point them to is John Carippo and Marlena Heburn's EduProtocols field guide. That just has a lot of core protocols in there that you can implement easily and quickly. When I first started doing this stuff and I was looking at Iron Chef, I actually just came across it, and I'm like, John Carippo, Iron Chef. Well, let me see. I'm going to tweet this guy and see what he responds, and I'm going to start trying to do this. And I did it on my own, and it's a shift. So it was loud, it was messy, but it was great because the kids were really involved with their learning. But I'm gonna suggest that first, and then if you want to start looking up some really cool protocols that are out there, just look up EduProtocols, and there's a lot that will come up. I've created my word reps. There's math reps from Lisa Nowakowski, and there's you can look up Petra Kucha if you're looking up and you want some ideas for how to empower kids with learning and talking about vocabulary. There's a ton out there. So EduProtocols, so you can do that as just you can just Google that and you'll start coming up with ideas. You'll probably, you'd probably come up with John's picture first when you look up EduProtocols, but then you're going to get some ideas about what they are.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much, David. I really appreciate your time and sharing your insight with us. And yeah, we will certainly, I'll put some links to these in the description of the video so that people can go and check out EduProtocols for sure. Definitely follow David and the other great educational leaders that we have on our siteleadersconnect.org website, on the database there. And thank you everyone for viewing. And do you have any final thoughts, David, of inspiration for those that are wanting to make a shift like this?
Yeah, jump in feet first and just go for it, because change sometimes does not happen unless you really force yourself. And it's just like jumping into that pool sometimes, and you need to start when we're kids and we need to swim from one end to the other. We're scared because we don't know what's going to happen. But if you jump in, you're not going to know what's going to happen. So you need to jump in and do it, okay, and experience it and understand that, well, if it blows up in your face, that's fine. It's okay. Kids need to see failure. failure is good. If they see failure from your teacher, they're going to be more likely to be okay with like, oh, it's actually okay to fail too, because they failed, and then you demonstrate for them, hey, now we messed up on that. Now we're going to do it again, and we're going to improve upon it, and we're going to get better, and we're going to take charge of our learning. So yeah, it can get messy, and it will get messy. It can be chaotic. There will be failure, but failure is part of the process, and we need to be able to embrace that, and we need to be able to demonstrate that for our students.
All right. Well, thank you, David. Thank you to all of our viewers, and catch our next Insight interview coming soon. Thanks so much, everyone.